They took off, and 109 seconds later, everything was silent. No mayday, no calls, just disappearance. But what investigators found in the black box wasn't a malfunction. It was something terrifying. The pilots thought the plane was flying straight, but it was nosediving into the jungle. It was May 5, 2007. A routine flight from Douala, Cameroon to Nairobi, Kenya. Kenya Airways Flight 507 was a Boeing 737 with 114 people on board. The weather was stormy, the night was humid, but the flight was cleared for takeoff. The pilots? A 52-year-old Cameroonian captain with over 8,500 flight hours, and a younger, less experienced first officer from Kenya. What should have been a simple takeoff turned into a fatal chain of silence. At 006 local time, Flight 507 lifted into the stormy African skies. Seconds after departure, the plane began to roll slowly to the right. At first, no one said a word. The pilots assumed the autopilot was correcting, but it wasn't. The aircraft kept tilting, 5 degrees, 10, 15. Still, nothing from the cockpit. By the time the angle hit 34 degrees, it was too late. The right wing dropped. The plane spiraled downward. The black box would later reveal not one of the crew reacted to the roll. Not one command was issued to level the plane. They were paralyzed. And then, impact. All 114 souls were lost. But this was just the beginning. The control tower watched the Kenya Airways jet vanish from radar. No crash alarm, no emergency signals, just gone. Initial theories pointed to communications failure. Maybe the pilots had turned off transponders, maybe it was sabotage. But there was a problem. The plane wasn't heading where it was supposed to go. Rescue crews were scrambled. The last known coordinates placed the aircraft deep over the Cameroonian jungle. Dense, inhospitable. There were no major cities, no access roads, only thick rainforest. Meanwhile, back at the airline's headquarters, panic spread. Family members gathered in shock. Some believed the plane had landed somewhere in secret. Others feared the worst. The airline released a brief statement. They had lost contact and were launching an investigation. But investigators were puzzled. The weather had been rough, but not enough to bring down a modern aircraft. So what had happened? Then, 40 hours later, a villager reported hearing a loud boom, followed by silence. When search teams reached the coordinates, they found wreckage scattered over the trees. The plane had hit the ground nose first, and what they discovered inside changed everything. The jungle was silent as rescuers approached the crash site. There was no fire, no smoke, just twisted metal hidden beneath the canopy. The impact had been brutal. The nose of the aircraft was buried deep into the soil, as if the jet had plummeted straight down. And yet, there were no clear signs of what had gone wrong. Investigators combed through the debris field. Bodies were still strapped to seats. Some were found with their hands covering their faces, as if they knew what was coming, but had no way to stop it. Then they reached the cockpit. The front of the plane was crushed. Both pilots were still in their seats. But the flight controls? Intact. No sign of technical failure. No alarms. No burned wires. And the flight data recorder. It was there. Intact. They rushed it to analysis. Back at the lab, what they heard was terrifying. The final seconds of the cockpit audio revealed something unthinkable. The pilots never knew they were falling. No calls, no panic. They calmly followed a flight path into the ground. How could that happen? One chilling theory emerged. The pilots were disoriented, spatially blind, flying through darkness with no reference points, and completely unaware they were descending. And worse, one of them had misread the flight instruments. The data recorder confirmed it. The plane was falling, fast. But inside the cockpit, there was no urgency. No pull-up, no mayday. Just silence, calm commands, routine. How? Then came the devastating realization. The pilots were relying entirely on their instruments. But one of those instruments was misread. It wasn't a mechanical error. It wasn't sabotage. It was a mistake, human but catastrophic. One pilot believed the aircraft was climbing. The other didn't correct him. Why? They were both fatigued. One had flown overnight. The other had barely rested. And the weather? Zero visibility. No stars, no lights. Just thick, black clouds over a remote region of Cameroon. In those conditions, without visual cues, the brain can play deadly tricks. Spatial disorientation. Pilots are trained for it. But in this case, something broke down. Coordination, communication, trust. Worse yet, recordings revealed that the autopilot had been disengaged. They were flying manually, in complete darkness, and no one noticed the drop in altitude until it was too late. But there's one question that still haunts this case. Why did the alarm system fail to alert them? Or did it sound? And they ignored it? The black box data revealed one more chilling clue. The ground proximity warning system, designed to scream when a crash is imminent, was active. It blared. Terrain, pull up, pull up. Louder and louder. But the pilots said nothing. No reaction. No acknowledgement. They kept descending, straight into the jungle. Why? Was the cockpit so overwhelmed? They tuned it out? Or were they already convinced the system was wrong? Aviation experts have a term for this: alarm fatigue. When crews hear too many alerts, they begin to ignore them. But this one was the last warning. At 2:08 a.m., the aircraft impacted the Earth at 450 kilometers per hour. The force shattered the fuselage. Everyone on board gone instantly. But here's where the mystery deepens. During investigation, audio filters applied to the black box uncovered faint, panicked breathing. Seconds before the crash, someone realized what was happening. And one voice whispered, barely audible, "No, we're going down." Was it too late? Or could one action have saved them all? To this day, no one knows who spoke those final words. But one thing is clear. The tragedy wasn't caused by a storm or a malfunction, but by a deadly illusion. Hours after the crash, investigators combed through the wreckage in total silence. Not just because of the devastation, but because something felt off. The cockpit was eerily intact. Buttons unpressed. Switches left in the wrong positions. They pulled the pre-flight checklist from the mangled debris. It had 4 missing signatures. Vital steps not marked as completed. Among them, a routine test of the attitude indicator. The very instrument that failed mid-flight. Why wasn't it checked? The Kenya Airways team insisted the plane was airworthy, but one mechanic quietly admitted, "We were rushed, tight schedule, the storm delayed everything." Then came the most shocking part. Security footage from the control tower showed the pilots boarding late, visibly stressed, checking their watches. The captain had flown 3 shifts in 2 days. The co-pilot had complained of severe fatigue in his last log report. And then, buried in the records, an anonymous maintenance report from just 48 hours before. Possible altimeter sync issue requires further inspection. It was signed, but never followed up. Kenya Airways denied the claim, but the mechanic who wrote it disappeared from the investigation. Quit. No statement, no trace. Was it a cover-up? Or just one more name in a tragedy written by human error? 17 years have passed. Yet the story of Kenya Airways Flight 507 continues to echo through the halls of aviation. Every checklist, every simulator, every captain in training knows this flight by name. Why? Because it wasn't just the crash. It was what it revealed. A flight operated by experienced crew, with a fully functional aircraft. And yet, a cascade of human errors, ignored warnings, and system design flaws led to 114 lives lost in less than 2 minutes. Investigators called it avoidable. Families called it negligence. But the truth? It's a reminder of how even the most ordinary flight can become an unthinkable disaster when awareness fails. And that's why Flight 507 still matters. Because until every cockpit respects every warning, every pilot questions every instinct, and every system is built for real-world confusion, we risk repeating history. One mistake, one hesitation, one missed signal can mean the difference between landing safely and never being found. So next time you board a plane, remember, it's not just the technology that keeps you safe. It's the eyes, hands, and decisions made every second. If you stayed with us until now, thank you. And if you want more true stories like this, subscribe to SKYPLUS and hit the bell so you never miss a flight. Because what's coming next is even more unbelievable.